Chapter 4. USP Big Sandy did not just happen. It was years-long work in progress. As our nation ran for the lead in being the strongest nation in the free world, it also ran to be the leader in incarcerating more of its citizens than any other industrialized nation in the world. The very sad reality is that the land of the free is actually less free than any other country on earth. The United States is home to 5% of the world's population, but it is also home to 25% of its prisoners. The incarceration rate that plagues the United States is 19% higher than Turkmenistan's, 36% higher than the late Fidel Castro's Cuba, and 57% higher than Russia's. The United States has a higher prisoner count than most of the world's most notorious repressive regimes. This system of mass incarceration costs the taxpayers, the government, and families of justice at least $182 billion per year. The costs associated with the system of mass incarceration include $80.7 billion for public correction agencies, including prisons, jails, and probation, $5.8 billion for prosecution, $63.2 billion for policing, only criminal law, and $12.3 billion for health care. Today, more than 2.2 million people are incarcerated in the United States. Between 1978 and 2009, the prison population in the United States rose by more than 425%. With that rise, prisons like USP Big Sandy began to pop up in poor rural areas. With new prisons came much-needed jobs for mostly poor white people, at the expense and anguish of poor Black and Hispanic communities. Today, 1 out of every 10 African Americans is in prison. Every American state has its prisons, as do most countries. Most people simply accept imprisonment or incarceration as the normal penalty for those who commit more serious crimes. In today's world, we tend to associate prison with hard discipline or punishment. It was not always that way. At their beginning, prisons were promoted as strongholds of the Enlightenment. These prisons were looked upon not only as a means to rehabilitate the criminally wicked, but to ultimately cleanse society of crime altogether. It was believed that the cleansing process, imprisonment, would make orderly societies safe for democracy. Initially, these prisons were called penitentiaries, as Big Sandy is today. This was because they promised to induce holy penitence in their prisoners. That promise is far from the truth within penitentiaries across the United States nowadays. The rise of the penitentiary is tied with the rise of American democracy. Prisons are not new. They are in fact as old as civilization itself. However, until modern times, they were seldom used to confine criminals for lengthy periods, much less for rehabilitation. In the New World, the rule of law usually relied on a much cheaper form of punishment, pain and shame. The tools of justice were branding, stocks, and the most feared, lashing with whips. The objective, according to the people ordained to administer justice, was not to cure crime, which was impossible, but to control it to some extent. To check man's inclination towards sin, the social hierarchy was enforced by a range of penalties. Free and propertied whites could circumvent even the most serious convictions with a fine. Outsiders generally faced expulsion. White servants, Indians, slaves, and free blacks were most often punished by the lash. The gallows were always there in the background, the ultimate penalty for serious offenders and repeat offenders of all kinds. These terrible public punishments made for a great show, but local governments found it hard to control their communities' interpretations. And colonial cities were growing. Gruesome penalties discouraged juries from delivering guilty verdicts, with more crime a predictable after effect. Prominent Americans called for change. They felt bloodthirsty punishments were unfit for the budding, emergent age of the market, that the gallows were simply too harsh an instrument of discipline, and that lashing, whip-rendering actual flesh, was overly severe. Americans leaving the mother country devoted time to ending the bloody code of the old country. Kings considered their people their property, so shedding their blood came as easy as slaughtering one of their calves. Although the people of the new land pushed back against sanguinary sanctions, they also understood that there must be some punishment for one's transgressions. In a democratic society, the great land of liberty, man had to be held responsible for his actions. Man could not be permitted to do as he pleased. Thus came the proposal for a penitentiary. A medical doctor and a signer of the Declaration of Independence, Benjamin Rush, proposed that a large house be erected, capable of reforming criminals and preventing crimes. Big Sandy was being molded from the beginning of the United States, absent the reforming criminals and preventing crimes. Could Big Sandy and my 40-year sentence ever reform me? As for a place that prevents crime, violent crime is rampant in this concrete-doomed castle. Chapter 5. Fear and anxiety rip through me like Hurricane Katrina. Knowing I cannot let these feelings destroy me, I gather my composure. A large metal key, a sound that I have become accustomed to, clangs against a dirty door with what appears to be faded blood spatter across the bottom. I see a guard with small brown beady eyes and a baseball cap peering through the small window at me and Kelly. "New guys?" he muffles through the door. "Yeah," Kelly yells back. To myself, I think, "No, asshole, we've been in your unit for years. Of course we're new guys." The guard has a sarcastic smile on his face as he turns the key. "Well, bro, here it all is," Kelly says. My mind regurgitates the words I heard earlier. "All I can tell you, young man, is get a knife." Stab or be stabbed vibrates from my forehead to the back of my head. I grip my mattress tightly as the door swings open. All eyes focused on us, the two new white guys. The din produced by 100 or more men envelops me, swirling through my ears like a windy day. Cigarette smoke dances in my nostrils, although tobacco products are prohibited in the federal prison system. Fluorescent lights pierce my eyes. It takes a moment for my eyes to adjust. Everything seems to be moving in slow motion. The guard rattles off our cell assignments. A group of white convicts approaches. The first guy extends his hand. "They call me Lefty," he says as we shake hands. "Chad," I respond. I notice Lefty has no right arm. Clearly, his name Lefty stems from his missing arm. I want to laugh, but I suppress the urge. "What cell is he going in, CO?" Lefty inquires. 107. "Oh, hold on, CO. Chad, check this out, bro. The cell they're trying to put you in, the kid who lives in there thinks he's black. He runs with the blacks. You're with the whites, right?" Lefty's question is in earnest. "Yeah, man, most definitely," I respond, remembering Kelly's Prison 101 speech. Lefty darts off in the direction of the guard. My ears focus in on his conversation. "This kid ain't going in that cell. We have some open white cells, and we'll find a place for him and let you know where he's going to be living in a minute." "Well, when you get it all figured out, let me know. I'll be in the office, Lefty." The guard with the beady eyes and dirty baseball cap heads towards the office. I stand there in awe. I am not showing it on my face, though. Things slowly sink in. Lefty just told the guard what was going to happen, and the guard had no objection. It is surprising to me that a prisoner can tell a guard what was going to transpire, and that the guard accepted it. It is easy to see that the convicts are calling the shots in this prison. I know full well that such circumstances cannot be good. A group of white convicts surrounds me, pelting me with questions. It reminds me of when I was a small child with a new puppy. It was exciting, something new. For these men, a new inmate is exciting because he brings stories from the streets, stories from other prisons. He brings change to days that always seem the same. Most people have different experiences every day. Prisoners have the same experience every day for years, some forever. The questions come from all directions. "What's your name, bro? Where are you from? How much time you got, bro?" I answer each question in quick succession. "My name is Chad. I'm from New York. I got 40 years on a crack case." The 40-year answer triggers a whistle from a fat white guy they call KY, Lefty's cellmate. "Damn, they ain't playing no games on that crack shit," he says in a Kentucky drawl. Everyone in the group shakes my hand and introduces themselves. Two of the men share the fact that they are serving life sentences, one for murder, the other for a methamphetamine case out of the great state of Texas. The Texas cowboy tells me in his words that he was a junkie, just delivering meth so that he could get high. He was pulled over, and because of 2 prior drug possession charges for small amounts, his new conviction mandated a life sentence. It seems like these guys are embracing me. Perhaps this thing won't be so bad after all. If I really believed that notion, I would only be tricking myself. "Chad, come here for a minute." Lefty calls me to his cell. I stand at the door. When he senses my reluctance to enter the cell, Lefty begins to laugh. "Come in, man. You watch too many fucking prison movies. You're cool, man." I laugh with him. "Yeah, man, you're probably right," I say as I walk into the cell. "Check this out, Chad. We gotta find you a house to live in. You can go in with this kid Eric or with this old man, Mr. Young, we call him." "Well, who do you think is better?" "I don't know, bro. They both have negatives. The kid Eric is a retard who almost stirred up a race riot in here. Mr. Young, he's an older guy stuck in his own ways. He goes to bed early, up at 5 o'clock every morning. It's like living with your old-ass grandfather," Lefty tells me. Hearing the race riot thing helps me make a quick decision, and I tell Lefty that Mr. Young sounds like a much better choice for me. He agrees. I watch him walk towards an old man with white hair. Another guy walks up to me and introduces himself. "Hey kid, I'm Louie from Boston. How are you doing? You like this place yet? It's a shithole." I haven't been here long enough to really answer Louie, so my response is simple. "We'll see, huh?" Lefty is waving me over. "Chad, this is Mr. Young." I reach my hand out. Mr. Young begins to interrogate me. The first question is whether or not I snore. I tell him I don't. He says, "Well, that's good, because if you did, you'd have to go in there with that old troublemaking Eric." His next question is whether or not I go to bed early. He explains that he cannot have a cellmate that wants to stay up all night. After a few more questions, he finds me suitable. I can live with him. Mr. Young walks me over to the cell I will be sharing with him, as if he does not want some new intruder in there alone. Finally, I am able to put my heavy mattress into a bunk, and I can at least hope for some much-needed rest this evening. My first thoughts are that Mr. Young is very clean. I do a once-over on the cell. It is immaculate. The floor is freshly shined, and it appears to have a new coat of wax. A few makeshift throw rugs cover parts of the floor. Several homemade cardboard shelves are affixed to the walls. A large country cottage calendar hangs on one wall. If there is such a thing as a homely feeling in prison, this cell is such a thing. The country cottage calendar is not something I expected to see in Big Sandy. For a brief moment, it makes me think of my grandmother. I faintly remember her house being decorated with country cottage paraphernalia and knickknacks. Even these brief thoughts of home and good times hurt, so when they show up, I try hard to push them away. My thoughts are interrupted. Mr. Young offers me some soap, a razor, and shampoo. He points at a pair of shower shoes on the floor and tells me I can use them when I shower. "If you don't use them, you'll have athlete's foot, and I don't want no one in here with their feet itching." He says this in a southern drawl. I thank Mr. Young for his generosity. I am in need of a shower. As I slip off my prison shoes, Mr. Young interrupts me. "Oh no, son. You gotta wear them sneakers to the shower. Put the shower shoes on in the shower. When you get out, dry your feet and put your sneakers back on." "Does everyone do that?" I ask. "Yeah, anything can happen around here, and you'll see that soon. You don't want to be slipping and sliding around here if something happens." I nod in agreement and slide my sneakers back on. Lefty is right behind me as I head to the shower. "Hey, Chad, I'm going to stand point for you, man," Lefty says. "What?" "Look, man, anything can happen here at the drop of a hat. Being in the shower, naked, is a vulnerable position. So what we do is when we shower, we take a white dude with us to stand outside the shower. We get each other's backs around here. We always keep a knife on us." "Man, this prison shit is crazy," I reply, thinking about the knife thing again. "Crazy and dangerous, bro. Go ahead, shower. I got you." After the shower, I make the rounds. Lefty chaperones me around the housing unit, and I meet new convicts. I learn how things are run here at USP Big Sandy. There are many rules and convict codes. The things that register quickly are the consequences. I am told that for certain violations, you could be stabbed, hit in the head with a padlock attached to a belt, or with a pipe. The violations that attract these types of punishments include snitching, selling knives or weapons to other races, and masturbating in the open in front of female staff members. These are called yard violations. Yard violations invite swift consequences. My brain registers each of them swiftly, and I commit to never violating any of the yard rules. Lefty introduces me to Nick, who gives me the rundown on how this place operates. Nick is 25 years old and serving a 13-year sentence for crack cocaine conspiracy in Buffalo, New York. Given Nick is from Buffalo and in my age bracket, I click with him instantly. Being we are from the same area, we are what they call homeboys in prison. Nick offers me some food and a soda. My response is what I learned from prison movies. "Man, I'm cool, but thanks anyway." I say this despite that my stomach is rumbling from hunger and too many bologna sandwiches that I could not choke down. Nick laughs at me. "Listen, Chad, I know you're hungry after that trip. Screw all them prison stories, dog. Eat. You don't owe me nothing. We're homeboys, man." I laugh and look back. I think about how Nick obviously took the same trip I took, and when he got here, he was likely as hungry as I am. After his speech, with my stomach rumbling and the smell of the burritos, I eagerly accept the food. Me and Nick hang out in the day room and talk for a while. I notice some of the white guys looking at us funny. I mention it to Nick. He tells me the whites do not like him because he is in the black New York car. I don't ask what a car is, but I just think back to just a few hours ago. Lefty intervened when I was assigned to a cell with another white guy who Lefty said thinks he's black. I wonder if it was Nick. Almost on cue, I hear a correctional officer yell, "All right, men, let's go. Night's over. Lock it up, lock it in." There was no time to ask Nick questions, and I am kind of relieved. I shake his hand and head over to my new cell. I suspect there will be no cockroaches or mice scurrying for cover when the lights come on in the morning. Every night at 9:45 p.m. we are locked in our cells until 5:30 a.m. As I climb into my bed, I think about how my first day in a real federal prison has come to a close. My eyes are heavy, and I imagine the lights will be going out soon as the door is locked. Mr. Young decides to break his number one rule by not going to sleep early. He engages me in conversation. Mr. Young tells me that he is 63 years old and that Big Sandy has been his home for the last 4 years. You know, Chad, he says, in my 63 years of life, I ain't never seen the violence that I have seen in this prison. You been anywhere with vicious violence? Not really. Not no prison, at least. About a month ago, there was 2 guys beating another fellow with a padlock on a belt outside. The officer in the gun tower fired a shot and hit the guy that was getting beat. What? This wakes me up. How the hell they shoot the guy getting beat? I asked with stunned curiosity. Well, they ain't that smart round here. That's why I ain't been to the yard since. Don't want one of them to shoot me on accident. Mr. Young keeps on rolling. My eyes grow heavier, begging for rest. He fills me in on another assault that happened in the unit I am assigned to, A4, just a few months prior. From what Mr. Young tells me, there was a guy who lived in this unit that was part of a gang called the Dirty White Boys. This gang has a lot of problems with other white prison gangs, and there was a plot to rid Big Sandy of any Dirty White Boy gang members. The morning had begun like any other, but before long, 4 white inmates came into the unit looking for the lone Dirty White Boy. Once he was spotted, a guy from Kentucky who called himself Seven grabbed the Dirty White Boy in a bear hug from behind, while 2 others helped Seven wrestle the guy to the ground. Once on the ground, another guy, Jerry Lee, stabbed the Dirty White Boy numerous times, and once in the eye. The Dirty White Boy was life-flighted out of the prison. Medical staff saved his life, but they were unable to repair his eye. The eye had fallen victim in humanity's hell, USP Big Sandy. Mr. Young's stories do not stop. He tells me about a race riot that broke out between black and white inmates. The white inmates were outnumbered and came out on the bad end of the gruesome assault. Correctional officers stormed the unit firing high-powered beanbag guns that left deep dents in the steel doors. As I am beginning to drift off to sleep, my thoughts are that Mr. Young is a walking USP Big Sandy newspaper. In the old days, he might have been called the town crier. After the long bus ride, I am utterly exhausted. Briefly, I wonder if going into Eric's cell with his stories about Adolf Hitler might have been better. Mr. Young was still going when sleep finally found me. The last thing I remember is fear rippling through my veins like cold ice water. Surviving this barbaric dungeon seems impossible. In my dream, I am falling into a deep, dark abyss. I am screaming, but nothing comes out, and then I wake up sweating, longing for water. My hands go to my eyes to make sure they are still there. The fear prevents me from falling asleep again. Mr. Young's alarm is beeping. He pulls himself up from his bunk. The doors unlock at 5:30. No one sleeps in around here for fear of someone coming into your cell and taking your eyes out while you're in dreamland. The unwritten rule is that no one sleeps unless the doors are locked. Those who do run the risk of death or a vicious assault. Chapter 6. Kelly meets me in the day room. My eyes adjust to the lights as Kelly reaches his hand out. How'd you sleep, man? Not bad, I lie. My night had not been good. How could it have been after all of Mr. Young's stories? The morning has just begun, and I'm already dreading what stories my cellmate will tell me once we are locked in tonight. You hungry, Chad? Starving, I respond. They should be calling Chow any minute, bro. A correctional officer unlocks the door to the unit and calls Chow. I follow behind Kelly and we make our way to the mess hall. The hallway is crowded with what looks like a herd of inmates. People are yelling back and forth as they hurry to breakfast. As we approach the mess hall, Kelly says, "Just follow me." There are 2 doors with 2 serving lines. We fall into the line that the white and Hispanic inmates form. Black inmates form their own line on the other side. All eyes, at least those belonging to the other white inmates, are on us. We pick up empty food trays and slide them on a counter. Different inmates put different food items on each tray. First scrambled eggs, then oatmeal, 2 biscuits, and a heaping scoop of gravy. After eating slop in the county jails and in Youngstown, Ohio, I am a little excited about the food on my tray. The white inmates sit in their own area of the mess hall, as do the black and Hispanic inmates. Both Kelly and I make our way to the white section. An inmate with a fully tattooed face asks, "Who you ride with?" Kelly takes control. In an aggressive voice, he says, "We're independents. Where do we sit?" Tattooed Face points to a table at the end of the line. As we sit down, Kelly whispers, Man, I hate those gang dudes, bro. They think they are tough. They ain't shit for real. I asked Kelly what the hell this car thing means. He explains a car is a group of people that stick together for good and bad. After a long explanation, I conclude a car is nothing but a gang with a more polite name. For example, a car might be a group of inmates from New York. Their leader is someone everyone looks up to. He has the keys. In other words, he's the driver. The whites have a bunch of different sects. Some are white supremacist gangs, some are white guys with no gang affiliation, but there is one supreme leader who has the keys for the yard for all the white inmates. The same goes for the black and Hispanic inmates. In prison politic hierarchy, I am labeled a white independent. I don't belong to a gang or group. For the most part, I am at the low end of the totem pole around here and on my own. Being on your own in prison is not the best choice. When you are by yourself in prison, it is like being a lone zebra near a pride of hungry lions on the African plains. Even on day one, it's easy to see that as a zebra in here, you can easily find yourself in a bad situation. Plus, vultures are lurking all over the place. Once breakfast is over, we head to the prison laundry for our government-issued clothing. The process takes hours. We stand in a line in the hallway. This is nothing like clothes shopping at the local mall, but this is still America. There will be commerce. As I wait in line, various inmate vendors attempt to sell me a variety of products: sneakers, Walkman radios, and cigarettes. One guy offers to sell me heroin. I decline the offers. Laundry issues me 2 pairs of khaki pants, 2 shirts, brown boxer shorts, t-shirts, socks, a Velcro belt, and a pair of new boots, heavy as cinder blocks. After the laundry process, we head to the medical department where a variety of tests are done on me. More questions are asked and answered. Shortly after the medical process is finished, I make my way to the commissary. I buy my own sneakers, some personal clothing, hygiene products, and some food. Big Sandy is like a small town. There's an infirmary as the hospital, a commissary instead of a department store, chapel for a church, exercise yard as a park, gym as a health club, mess hall as a restaurant, correctional officers as their own little police department, and even a jail inside the prison. This jail is called the Special Housing Unit, but there's nothing special about that place. The afternoon will bring a new aspect to my life in this small town. There is no way to avoid the recreation yard. I am told some of my other homeboys want to meet me. Once lunch is over, inmates are permitted to go to the yard. This is not an adventure that I look forward to, but one I must embark on.